Greetings, my scattered sisters and brothers in the Lord. Trust you know the Lord is with you wherever you find yourself scattered today, and that you know that His presence with you is more than enough for whatever you might face today. We're continuing on with the story of Elijah and the widow, and you know that her son died. And Elijah said to the widow, "Give me your son." So we'll pick it up there, verse 19. Well, I'll go ahead and back up to verse 17, and we're in 1 Kings 17. Sometime later, the son of the woman who owned the house became ill. He grew worse and worse and finally stopped breathing. She said to Elijah, "What do you have against me, man of God? Did you come to remind me of my sin and kill my son?" "Give me your son," Elijah replied. He took him from her arms, carried him to the upper room where he was staying, and laid him on his bed. Then he cried out to the Lord, "Lord my God, have you brought tragedy even on this widow I am staying with by causing her son to die?" Then he stretched himself out on the boy 3 times and cried out to the Lord, "Lord my God, let this boy's life return to him." The Lord heard Elijah's cry, and the boy's life returned to him, and he lived. Elijah picked up the child and carried him down from the room into the house. He gave him to his mother and said, "Look, your son is alive." Then the woman said to Elijah, "Now I know that you are a man of God, and that the word of the Lord from your mouth is the truth." Now there's one thought I want to focus on today. We'll come back to this passage next time. There's a couple of other things to look at. But the thought I want to focus on today is that Elijah cries out to the Lord. And Elijah places the responsibility for the death of the child on the Lord. And he says, "Oh Lord, have you brought calamity, tragedy upon this woman as well, that you took her son?" Let me go ahead and read that line to you one more time, what Elijah prayed out. "O Lord my God, have you brought tragedy even on this widow I am staying with by causing her son to die?" That's pretty heavy. Elijah recognizes that breath belongs to the Lord. And breath is the Lord's to give, and it's the Lord's to take. And so when the child is dead, he stopped breathing, Elijah turns to the Lord, and "Lord, have you brought tragedy by causing her son to die?" Ultimately, life and death are God's to give and to take. And so I don't know that we always think that way. I think sometimes we find ourselves getting in a position where we feel like in order to defend kind of the goodness of God, then we try to sidestep that breath belongs to God, not only to give, but also to take. And so I've heard ministers say, "God didn't take this person who died of cancer, the cancer took them." And I'm sure that you've heard something similar. COVID-19 caused their death, not God. And yet if I hear what Elijah's saying, that ultimately breath belongs to God. And it's God's to give, and it's God's to take. And there may be different mechanisms by which God takes breath, whether it's cancer, COVID-19, heart attack, or just talking illnesses now. But ultimately, breath is God's. And it's God's to give, and it's God's to take. And that's something that we need to remember, that God is good, and we don't have to worry about defending God's goodness. We have to trust God in the midst of the giving and the taking. And I think about my mom's own passing, and the first words out of my dad's mouth, "The Lord giveth, and the Lord taketh. Blessed be the name of the Lord." Quote from Job as he faced his calamities. And Elijah recognizes that. The breath belongs to the Lord, it's the Lord's to give, and it's the Lord's to take. And so when the boy stops breathing, Elijah turns to the Lord. The Lord's ultimately responsible, and he begins to cry out to God. Now we'll look at what happens next time. But for now, wherever you find yourself scattered in the midst of births and the midst of deaths, remember that all breath belongs to God, and it's the Lord's to give, and it's the Lord's to take. Blessed be the name of the Lord. Well, God bless. Have a great day wherever you find yourself. And ultimately, it's God's breath.